Welcome back to the EU LCS hype matchup coming up. But first, we want to take a look back with the victorious Otawamne, who has a very ominous position for his microphone. But Otawamne, finally on the Camille, carry top laner. You were so sad last time I talked to you about all the dog champs in the top lane. Talk to me how it feels to bring in Camille now and to help carry the victory home for the team.
I mean, I played it last week, didn't I?
You got one, too. You got one. H2k game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't that fun. I mean, like me and Iski kind of camped him a bit, but yeah, it feels good to be off dog champs because I don't know, it's just more fun when you can actually impact the map when you just roam around, or you kind of have a relevant laning phase and you can actually impact the later stages of the game by how you perform in laning phase. So I don't know, just playing Camille today felt kind of great.
I mean, it looked good, and Giants were clearly pretty scared about you, given that they sent Steel back to camp you repeatedly to show up in your lane. It seems like you were pretty prepared, though, as you were able to get the 2v1 outplay. Were you surprised to see Twitch so frequently trying to shut you down?
It's not even. I feel like it's not even my pick. I feel like they just kind of screwed themselves over by picking Janna, and they got counterpick with Lulu, so they just had. They were getting really destroyed both because. I think the reason they swapped into my lane wasn't to kind of shut me down, even though I was 20 CS ahead from like my first base. It's more like they were just losing both really hard, and their only play was kind of, you know, swap into me, just deny me some waves, and just try to get first tower from it and just use GP ulti bot. But I feel like that didn't really work for them because after that swap, they were 50 CS behind on Twitch. So I feel like that's the main reason why they did that swap. And just because they lost bot so hard, even when they tried to gank me with Twitch, he was kind of useless because he had only static shit, so he wasn't even like damaging me.
It felt a little, but the public has voted, and you are in fact the player of the game. So congratulations.
Cool.
Look like Camille,
thanks, guys. Thank
Camille
you.
is the secret to success. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And for now, we're going to send it back to the analyst desk to take us into the next match.
Thank you very much, Dracos. Yeah, Otawamne was one of the guys we were looking at Splice to step up and be another damage dealer next to Kobe, and he was player of the game. And most importantly, Maurice, you made a mistake. You don't have a flawless prediction anymore, your first one.
I didn't have a flawless prediction from last week already.
But this one was an easy one.
Yeah.
What happened, man? Did you misclick?
Yeah, no, I didn't expect Splice to actually do something before 20 minutes, but they did. And that's like the huge difference to what I've seen already. So I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, it was great to see that Splice was proactive in the early game. Otawamne had a fantastic game, and his ex-team is up next because H2k and Roccat are our next match of the day. H2k currently 1-7 at the bottom of the table. They made some drastic changes last week. They brought in Selfie in the mid lane. They moved Kadril to the jungle instead of Santorin. And for this week, it looks like they found a permanent replacement for Santorin in Shook. And Shook is a very familiar face when it comes to the EU LCS. He has a lot of experience.
Yeah. Always finds his way back into the EU LCS. You can see a new haircut, makes him look like the H2k logo, but it is Shook, trust me. Last time he played, he was on NIP. Very inconsistent performances from him. Of course, NIP was down at the bottom of the standings, but he remained the kind of jungler who could either go 10-0 or 0-10. And he needs to be 10-0 for H2k to win games.
He does. Amazing. You think that this is the best thing that H2k has done yet?
Yes, this season they've made a couple of odd roster moves, and especially last week, obviously the safety change, which I really like, also came with putting Kadril in the jungle, which I obviously really didn't like. But yeah, Shook is someone that can always provide some kind of aggression in any kind of team, and him almost like playing, like not caring on stage because he's really aggressive. He looks for his place. He owns plays his solo queue. It's really good for H2k because they've always lacked this kind of drive to actually do something in the early game, and him and Selfie are actually a solo queue kind of combo that I think is going to work well for them.
Yeah, I really hope it's going to work for them. One thing I did hear a lot about Shook last split, also when it was on NIP, was he was very vocal. He's a lot more mature now. He becomes a bit of a leader in the early game, and he kind of tries to dictate exactly what's going to happen. If he can do that with this H2k lineup, they might actually have a game plan coming into the game. And that could be big for them.
Let's hope so, because H2k is really in need of an identity now, is in need of a goal, and is in need of some wins. And it has been dire for them, as said, 1-7. They have the lowest team damage per minute since tracking began of the stat in 2014. And what does it do to a team and to the players in that team where you're not getting any kills, any towers, you're not doing any damage and any wins? I know you guys have both been on teams of varying success. So what do you think it does to those players, and how can they turn it around? Is this a good start?
It's really taxing on the mind, especially if you have high aspirations. But I do think that it maybe in, at least like in HK's case, they didn't have like these kind of expectations to go to top 1, whatever it is. So it may be a bit easier for them. Still, if you have new talent coming in that has the first sniff of the ULCS in Sheriff, for example, I don't think he really enjoys like being crushed every single game. So now them actually trying to do something and not just passively rolling over and dying, hopefully is going to bode well for their psyche.
I also think, though, when you have some names who's not succeeded before on the LCS stage and kind of been in and out, when you see that lineup, even as a player on the team, you might come in and saying, okay, I'm going to believe that everyone here is really good and we can make something happen. But then when you start losing instantly, I think the trust disappears very quickly in some of the names. I mean, we've already seen this with Santorin leaving the team, now Kadro stepping off. That trust is so important because that's what tells you, okay, these are the correct players I'm playing with, and we can improve to become a good team. If you don't have that trust, very quickly you get demotivated, and then it's just downhill.
Absolutely, it's downhill, and then the momentum never gets going. And their opponents, Roccat, they're kind of the opposite story this year. Obviously, we thought this year, can Roccat be more than spoilers? Can they be more consistent? And for now, they're doing pretty well. Even last week, they had their first deathless game in the history or the organization against Misfits. Not a weak team either, and they're just doing really, really well after going 0-2 the week before. Then they bounced back spectacularly, and I think this team is really an example of some players, some rookies, and some players who have been around, who have found some success, and that trust seems to be there.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Like after week 3 0-2 outing, I really thought that this would be the level they're going to be playing at again, because I didn't expect too much of the roster. But then coming back with a deathless game against Misfits and actually doing plays early game, which is something we've yet to see out of them, is a really good sight, because Roccat, you can't always wait for the enemy to make mistakes in late game. You actually have to do something to win the game, and they've done so last week.
I also like the fact they're sticking to some of these comps that are a little bit harder to execute, where there's a lot of split pushing involved, and you kind of need to get ahead early game, especially for Prophet in the top lane, because he loves to play now Camille. We've seen the Gnar. He's also tried Jace. This team, as long as they play around him, he can be aggressive. The forward percentage, the third stat you see on your screen, 51%. That's how much time he's spending past the river in the laning phase, in the face of whoever he's playing against. And when he gets a jungler who's playing around him, when Blank can roam up to his side, he can do this. And it's huge for Roccat in trying to get ahead early game. So I like this new Prophet with a lot more confidence, who's trying to win lane. And it's actually working for Roccat now.
When we talk about surroundings and environment, in an interview with LoL Esports, he was also talking about it wasn't that fun when he played for NiP and they were losing and he couldn't really ever get a grip of that. Now he's in the studio, the fans are cheering because they're winning, and it's all a snowball, really. But you do have to yourself be responsible to make changes to get that snowball going. And I think that's what we're commending H2k for today.
Yeah, I mean, H2k, they had to change something again, because clearly Kadro in the jungle would not be the answer. And they need wins now if they want to make playoffs.
Yeah, because it's still, honestly, we can't beat it, but it is still very bad and we need to see a change. So, Maurice, do you think it's enough? Do you think H2k can start today with a win? Do you think this is enough?
I predict against them, but I do think that they have a window of opportunity here.
All right, let's see what happens. Both teams are looking to end their first half of the split with a win. We'll see what happens when they clash on the Rift, and we head to Medic and Vedius.
Thank you, Shox. Vedius, what a strong first game. Quickest game of the split.
Yep.
Are we going to see the same thing here?
Excellent question. I don't expect so. I think that, I think it will be relatively quick, though, based on H2k's track record. When they get to 35 minutes and they start a Baron, doesn't always go the way in which they would like. Hopefully we see some change as we enter the halfway mark, but we'll see. Could Shook change the identity of this team, or they continue on a track record to potentially being one of the worst teams in ULCS history?
Well, let's take a look at the teams on stage, starting on the blue side with Roccat. What a strong performance from them thus far. 4-4, but a lot of people would not have expected them to be there. And a lot of that rides on their top lane wonder kid. It's Prophet.
Oh yeah, I mean, this guy has been pretty dominant during the laning phase. You heard about it from the analysts. You're going to hear more about it from us in-game. But this guy is pretty lane dominant. He was known last year when he played for NIP as being a big split pusher. He loved being on a side lane. NIP were a little too reliant on him being on it, but we'll have to see how he stands up against Smitty J over on H2k. Coming in with some new manpower this time around with Shook in the jungle. Definitely a familiar face to those who have followed the European scene.
They haven't actually unlocked Shook yet, I'm afraid.
Not yet. You have to get the key to unlock his true power.
You have to get 10,000 Zenny points or whatever they're called.
But it's definitely going to be exciting to see what he can do, because a lot of the weight rests on his shoulders right now. H2k don't really have an identity. They've struggled against every team. Their only redeeming quality has been their defeat against Fnatic. And aside from that, we really see nothing from this roster. You know, we were expecting a lot more trust in the rookies, and it feels like they haven't been able to live up to that. So we'll see that if Sheriff can perform, now that he's got a new jungler by his side, or whether or not they will continue on their downward trajectory.
Whereas Roccat continue to trust the rookies in Blank and in Norskeren, who have had very strong performances for them. Like Norskeren especially, it's not often that we really highlight supports because it's quite hard to track them and say, look at how much better this support is than the other supports in the league. But Norskeren continues to perform, especially on Braum, his most played. His ability to position well in fights and to turn the tides of a team fight is unparalleled at times.
Now the tense music is because this game is very tense. Look at the scores at the top of your screen. 1-7 for H2k right now, sitting at the bottom of our league alongside the Unicorns of Love, but Roccat very tightly knit in the middle at 4-4. Splice secured themselves a win earlier, moving them up, but the standings, they're all over the shop.
5-4 is where you want to be at the halfway mark. That's what seems to be that sort of dividing line between teams that are probably going to make playoffs and teams that are probably not. But we are still early in the split, so it's hard to predict exactly how everything will pan out. But if Roccat could win today, get themselves up there with Splice, with Giants, they will be very happy with the first half of their split. Kalista, Tom Kent removed from H2k, Zoe and the Talia taken away from Selfie. And the Galio.
Looking at some of the other options that yet to be banned away. Azir was banned earlier in the day, still very strong, did receive a bit of a nerf this patch, but still very potent in the middle lane. Rise up and available too. You're looking at some strong bans on the other side, like Prophet has been pretty consistent on things like the Gnar and the Camille. Maybe you want to take him off one of those two big carries in the top lane. Memento, big advocate for the Sejuani. Let's not forget all the steals he was able to get away from Vitality. But it looks like that H2k gonna ban away the Azir in the middle lane. Now, you would typically expect the Rise to be the first pick. You want to get yourself a strong laner, especially with the Zoe also banned on the side of Roccat. We've seen Blanc bring it out before. Both him and Prophet have this excellent 1-3-1 synergy that they've demonstrated multiple times. And I think that the mid laner of Roccat can be pretty happy securing that pick for himself.
Yeah, getting the Rise for himself. 2-1 on that across the course of this split. One of his comfort champions alongside Azir. It is 8.3 that we're playing on, so the stopwatch Realm Warp combo no longer works, but Rise still a very strong champion nonetheless. And that's the Xayah lock-in. This draft looking very similar to the Giants one that we had just a couple of moments ago. H2k getting Sheriff a strong laner in that bottom lane.
Interesting how already this in week 5 we've seen a little bit more priority on the Xayah. Feels like AD carries now value a little bit more getting that strong 2 versus 2. Makes me wonder if, given the recent nerfs to Unseal Spellbook, if that has affected that priority ever so slightly. But it seems H2k gonna pick a very similar trend to what Splice did earlier in the day, locked themselves in their mid very early on.
Yes. Xayah and Orianna, their first rotation picks. I was going to say neither of these two have been played by H2k yet this split, which is true. But saying that Selfie hasn't played Orianna yet when he's only played 2 games is a little bit...
A little unfair.
Unfair. Could have picked a Nivea again, of course. And Roccat going to answer with the Sejuani and the Camille. Camille top lane is definitely a contested pick this week.
I feel like Camille right now is the strongest top laner in the current meta. She has very few answers to deal with her. Smitty J last week picked the Fiora into the Camille, Vizichachis, and during the laning phase he struggled, but in the side lane it was definitely a potent answer given your ability to outscale in terms of the 1 versus 1. But I feel like that would be a bit of a risk to take from the side of H2k, because what right now it seems is that they've drafting themselves a bit more of a straightforward composition. You have Engage with the Rakan, you have a powerful 2v2 bot lane, you have a winning matchup in mids, and you're already setting yourself up for pretty decent scaling. You have early pressure. Seems much more well-rounded compared to previous comps we've seen from H2k.
Ball delivery system already there as well with the Rakan going in. You can get a great Orianna combo off there. We're seeing that team fight, mid-game spiking sort of team composition worked so well for Splice earlier on. In terms of junglers, you do still have Zac available here for H2k if Shook was willing to play that.
Would quite like to see an Alistar ban here from H2k. I think that it would fit very nicely into Rockat's composition, and I also think playmakers are stuff that Norskeren loves to get himself. Just really set up these mid to late game fights. We've talked about how he is really good in these team fights, his positioning and execution. And it's nice to show that respect coming out from the side of H2k.
There is the Alistar ban. Great prediction from you there, Vedi. It's not something we always think about that extra little bit of utility for the team. But Roccat do still have the Braum available if they want it. They could go down to something like a Shen or a Taric as well. So it's not exhausting the champion pool of Norskeren.
I feel like Roccat just want to get away some of the strong junglers, like Kha'Zix would be another good ban here. Instead, they're actually showing the respect towards Smitty J. We were just talking so much about the Fiora and saying it would be a very risky thing to pick into this draft, but Roccat is saying, you know what? Thinking about it, Fiora's probably the only champion right now that you can really pick into a Camille, and every other matchup is actually pretty weak. You can still go for something like a Gnar, but in terms of the side lane pressure, it's definitely going to fall off later into the game.
We've seen the Gangplank already today as well. That is what Smitty J will take into the Camille, but it's a very difficult lane matchup to play. You do scale up very well. There's the Caitlyn for HeQ, a safe AD carry for him. Will be his 4th game of the split there, and Norskeren looking for his support. Expect to see something like a Taric or a Braum here, just a safe bottom lane for them.
I think I would prefer the Taric. The anti-team fight, especially against something like the Roccat, I think would be very valuable, but maybe they go for something a little bit more risky. I don't think, I can see the Braum. I know it's Norskeren's comfort pick, and I feel like that it makes sense in the sense that it's valuable for him, but I don't know if it makes the most sense going up against that kind of a comp.
And it's odd to see H2k leave their jungler for the last pick. It's not something that always happens with teams. Usually it's a mid laner or a top laner looking for that direct counter pick. Here they've gone for the jungler, and it might be that Zach we talked about.
I think that it facilitates. I think it works nicely with the Rakan. This is very much what Splice were looking to go for last game, when you have the strong mid, you have the strong bot. Sure, they're going to lose in terms of the 1v1 up top side, but your Zach now isn't just going to get permanently invaded by Roccat. Because one thing that we saw last week was when Kadro was in the jungle, they had 3 losing lanes, and then Kadro didn't get a jungle. Sure, it's his return to the LCS. He needs to make sure that he's having a comfortable early game, playing in a new environment with a new team, and guaranteeing strong lanes compared with a Zac who can be a big playmaker and pretty active in the early game, I think will serve H2k very, very well. I think he has a couple of options. He can either look to just perma-gank bot and try and snowball the Xayah Rakan lane, or he can try and mitigate what is a losing lane up top and try and limit the amount of snowballing that Camille has. Because while Camille should be able to beat Gangplank in the 1v1 later on, teamfight value Gangplank is always going to have that extra bit of an advantage, given that he will scale with crit and also the ultimate that is just so much global pressure that you always have to respect.
And on the other side, seems that we have more of a 1-3-1 composition coming out here from Roccat, with the Camille up in the side lane, the Rise there as well, and then OK poke and siege from the Caitlyn as well. You lay down a line of traps, you can stop people in their tracks. We've seen these 2 compositions match up against each other in the last game. Splice were the winners there. H2k have the Splice comp, so maybe if the track record serves, we are looking at H2k's 2nd win of the split, with Shook now in the team.
Well, a lot of pressure is going to fall onto Shook. 1-7 H2k. Currently the worst performing team in the European LCS, sitting at the bottom of the table alongside the Unicorns of Love. Only Trevor Quickshot Henry has predicted H2k to win out in this matchup today. And we shall see if Shook can carry the weight of this team, because a lot of pressure is going to be on him. You can see, can he shake things up?
I love the puns we come up for these.
I mean, it's a wonderful stats team, really supporting us in that one. And these are some of his stats from the 2017 EU LCS Summer. You can see, in terms of his jungle proximity, he was relatively low compared to a lot of the other junglers in the past. His kill plus assist early game, also relatively low. Compare that to this split, though. That is actually pretty high.
These would all be in the top 1 to 3 at the moment. Jungle proximity of 40% is incredibly high. Kill plus assist at 1.8 is very high as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to remember the meta's changed a little bit. We didn't have stopwatches then, so people couldn't get out of it. We didn't have the double relic shield meta.
But that's what the stats indicated relative to how Shook did versus other junglers. But for me, one of the things that I remember about Shook is when he played on NIP was that he found a surprising number of early ganks and early leads for NIP. It was just the mid game where things started to crumble. And going up against Roccat, you would hope that things change, because I feel that Roccat is one of the best performing mid-game teams currently in our league.
I have to see if they are able to utilize those mid-game windows of opportunity, because H2k do have the pushing lanes that we talked about, and sometimes getting forced back in your lane can delay that mid-game a little bit. meaning that you don't have as many options because the enemy team is just a little bit ahead of you coming towards the middle portion of a matchup. Now,
Okay.
no.
After you,
After
Medic.
you, good sir.
Oh, very
After
well.
you.
I will. So I was only going to talk about some of the matchups that we have across the board because
That was what I was going to do as well.
Oh, wonderful. Great minds think alike. So I want to start down in the bottom lane, largely because you guys heard me talking a little bit about why I'm not a fan of Braum. And as we have a support main alongside, you can echo my concerns. I feel like Braum into a Xayah Rakan is not the best. I feel like the Rakan, it's very easy for him to get an engage onto this kind of a bot lane. And while the shield is good against something like the feathers from the Xayah, I still feel like it doesn't really mitigate a lot of what Xayah Rakan is good at, which is snowballing a lot of early.
Totally agree with you there. If you pick the Braum, you're looking to try and block out that Feather Storm. The difficulty really is, part of Braum's power in lane is the concussive blows.
Exactly that.
And the Rakan jumps in on you, you get one proc off, and then he jumps away, and you just can't chase him down.
Exactly
We
that.
have seen some Braums going for the Glacial Augment to try and get a little bit more sticking power.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not sure if Norscaven is running that in this game.
But the difference is, we do know that Norscaven for him, Braum is a big comfort pick. I do believe it's his most played support.
Played it
of
5
the split.
times.
5 times, there you go. And in team fights, you gotta watch his positioning, because this guy always seems to be in the right place at the right time. He just seems to do so many things well. So we can track that later on into the game. That's the bot lane matchup. Mid lane matchup we talked about in the last matchup. Very much about this Orianna. You do often have a lot of lane pressure. Simply because against mid-game mages, it can be rather challenging to trade against an Ori because she just straight up outranges you and outbursts you. Now, we see a bit of a trade down the bottom lane, but this is what you're talking about, right? You try to lock down that Rakan, very difficult with the amount of mobility that he has, and H2k are able to successfully walk off with a successful trade.
And you can see Norscaven and Hiku realize this. Doran's shield on Hiku, minion dematerializer on Norscaven as well to try and get the push in the lane. Blank's going to teleport back here after getting himself a tier pickup. Does have a minion dematerializer of his own to try and mitigate the push that Selfie will have naturally in this matchup.
But I'm surprised by how far back Selfie is playing, because this is not typically what you expect.
Does this the flash away from Selfie?
And this is why I wanted to talk a little more about this mid lane matchup, because this is typically not what you would expect from the 1 versus 1. Orianna should be using her range to her advantage to make it difficult for the Rise to ever really come up to her and get those kind of combos off. But given the pressure that Memento's putting down in this early game, dropping a lot of deep vision, or at least towards the entrance of the enemy jungle, they're allowed to play this aggressively and block. He's able to force a flash out and get a successful early back.
Shook's just going to have to back away here from Memento as well. But this is good pressure from the Roccat jungler, getting in, putting the pressure down, getting some deep vision off here, Vedios.
And I love talking about Memento in the early game, because while last game, we heard a lot about how Joko loves to set up a lot of early plays. Memento is all about vision. This guy loves to ward. Vision score is another thing that you can just keep your eyes on with this man, because he is all about control in the early game. He does not want his laners to fall behind. He wants to get them to the mid-game point where this team is often its strongest. And he is the primary shot caller. So he wants to just focus on control rather than snowballing lanes or trying to build up massive early game.
Let's go and try to stop the back of Sheriff here. Promise you can jump back, and this is so beautiful.
Instant back.
Insta back straight away. You protect your AD carry, you lose out nothing from it. You go back, you get a BF sword, and you're feeling pretty darn good about the lane now.
He's so happy, in fact, that he's even dancing, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, so we've covered most of the matchups.
Yeah.
We've got to round things out with the final one up in the top lane. Not an uncommon one, something we've seen multiple times. Very similar to what we would expect, but more so, we've got to focus on this top laner Prophet. This guy, known for being lane dominant, known for building up pretty significant lane advantages by playing these split pushes. And Nart and Camille are two of the champions that he's shown such proficiency on. And what's impressive is how often he does it with a very limited amount of jungle support.
Oh, it definitely is. You look at it, his jungle proximity is about average. 5.3% of the time his jungler was near him in the early game, but he steps forward so much. Deficio mentioned this on the analyst segment earlier on. 51% of the time in the early game, he is above that halfway mark in the lane. He is pushing into the face of his enemy laner, and it gets him this massive CS differential at the 15-minute mark. That's second only to Wonder, who is just over 14 CSD.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but Prophet, former SKT player, When he played for NIP, he didn't have that kind of a performance, but now it feels like that he's stepping up much more compared to the past.
He was used in the bottom lane, but it's weird how, you know, Prophet left SKT, they brought in Intara, they brought in Huni, and SKT just started collapsing Vedius.
Does feel like
do you think it was Prophet who made SKT good?
Maybe, you know, and now he could be the one to bring Roccat to new heights, right? It's
Roccat
been a while.
are gonna be world champions.
It's been a while since they've been in playoffs for the European LCS.
Yeah, we'll start there.
That's the first step, I feel. But this split push style is definitely one that's working out for Prophet and Roccat in the current meta, and they seem to be playing around it nicely. So in this early game, not a huge amount of action has happened. We've been able to talk about literally every lane.
I've got more.
Tell me.
So you talk about the split push style from Prophet, and we talk about his laning, but so much of it is about how you translate good laning stats and good laning numbers into the later portions of the game. We have a 1-3-1 composition from Prophet and from Roccat here. My concern is, will they actually be able to utilize it as effectively as they used to now that Blank doesn't have a get out of jail free card with the stopwatch and with the realm warp?
Well, that's one of the big questions relating to the changes to Rise, because the reason why Rise was so good at playing the 1-3-1 was he could literally sit under the enemy tower, the tier 3 one now, and the moment people try to collapse upon him, you Zhonya's, well, you realm warp, then you Zhonya's, then you're out, enemy team can't catch you, and you're able to successfully punish.
Pretty even early game here between H2k and Roccat. H2k playing their first game with Shook, and it's looking a little bit better in the early game here. Shook not falling behind too much. The CS not always the best representation of jungle numbers and jungle experience, although he is about a level down, but he's getting deep vision in, trying to keep a track of his enemy jungler, and this is the experience that Shook has as a jungler paying off.
I feel like you're overselling him just a little bit, Medic. So far, he hasn't really been able to accomplish a huge amount, and SmittyJ could be in some trouble.
Exec automation used. Here's the realm warp as well. They're looking for a 3-man dive on this tower. The stun, the stopwatch. Glacial Prison does not connect. Blank trying to get some damage down off towards the side as well. Memento tanking this one up. Now it's Blank, and Roccat will get away.
Nice roam up towards the top side, utilizing the Rise. Now we need to see if H2k can answer down on the bottom side.
The quickness comes out. There's the double knock as well. Sheriff on his way. The flash away, but Hiku's brought back. Let's Bounce jumps in. Hiku there. Shook in the front line. The ball. There's a kill for H2k. They're looking for a little bit more with the shockwave from the side. No scare and push a Fisher down, but it's a double kill for H2k. And who's underselling Shook now?
Great answer from H2k, successfully getting themselves some early kills on the board. Was just about to bring up how I'd love to see Shook trying to play towards this 2v2 in the bot. You have Azaya Rakan, really easy to make dives happen. But and they found the perfect opportunity. The moment Memento was spotted up topside, they wanted to try and shut the gangplank down early on. And while they get themselves first blood and the first and a kill down onto the mid laner of Roccat, it's H2k that are able to successfully answer down the bottom side.
That they do, and you can see Roccat reacting, moving with the lane swap here. Let's have another look at this fight, because SmittyJ survives a very long time.
Yeah, he does his best utilizing the Zhonyas, utilizing the flash too, taking advantage of the oranges to break out from CC, but the reality is there are 3 people. Roccat by plenty of time, by managing the tower aggro, and unfortunately for Rockat's bot lane, they didn't really have a tower to play behind. Given that Blanc was already in the top lane, it made it very easy for Selfie to roam down the bot. And if you think 3 members are difficult to stall out, while 4 is even harder. So good setup there from H2k, and this is definitely a positive sign of light for the side of H2k. Being more proactive in the early game, playing around their strong laners, and getting themselves an early gold lead.
10 minutes in, it's about 300 gold for them. 20 CS ahead for Sheriff. There's a 20 CS difference in that top lane as well between Prophet and SmittyJ. Gold is even across the board, but you're looking at 600, 500 here or there. Because SmittyJ has Kleptomancy as his keystone rune, he's actually still even on gold with Prophet, even after being an assist and 20 to 30 CS behind.
I'll have to see how all of these advantages scale into the mid and late game. But I want to take this opportunity to reference back to a statement that I made earlier on, Medic, which
you
was
do that, Vedius.
Which is very much that for H2k, could Shook change the identity of this team, or will H2k continue on a trajectory to being one of the worst teams in EU LCS history? And the reason why I can make that kind of a claim is because of statistics like the one presented on screen.
So H2k average 1,384 damage a minute this split. The Unicorns of Love, who are at The same scoreline, average 1,727.
Just below average.
The average for the league is, as you say, 1,858. And H2k have the lowest team damage a minute since we started tracking the statistic.
Yes, that is how low this damage per minute is, and it just echoes the sentiment of how poorly H2k have been able to really make things happen during the regular season, and that's why eyes were on Shook. Can he be the one to change the identity? And so far in this early game, he is making things happen. He has already answered some of the early pressure from Roccat, but they need to keep this pressure up. It's not all sunshine and rainbows for Roccat. H2k have a pretty compelling lead at this point in the game, and they have still a strong 2v2 that they're moving around the map and looking to try and push down some early towers.
It's very similar to the game between Splice and Giants previously. However, H2k haven't been able to take towers yet, which is something Splice were doing by this portion of the game. With the same composition or thereabouts, H2k need to start to look to get these objectives, because if they don't, they will allow Roccat to scale up. They'll allow this Camille to get even bigger. 30 farm ahead now. They're going to use the Rift Tower down towards, up towards this top lane. They try and answer the pressure from Prophet down in the bottom, and they should get first tower blood with this, which will put them a little bit further in the lead.
But remember, H2k, their comp still scales quite nicely as well. They do have good team fighting later on. Gangplank, Orianna, Xayah, all really powerful once they hit the 2-item mark especially. And you have good initiation with the Zac and the Roccat. So I definitely think H2k have late game win conditions available. Let's see if Roccat can force something in the early game.
May have been greeted to stay for this blue buff. H2k going to get away with 4 members blank. They're looking for the stun onto Shook, but can't connect. Prophet's going to jump across the wall, jumps in. Hextech ultimatum onto Promise Cupid. There is the shockwave as well. Cell Division comes out from the Zac as Roccat now have to retreat. They need to run away. It's a 5v4, but here come H2k. Realm Warp out. Roccat escape.
Very close there for Prophet. Very near to death. But H2k played that as well as they could. Shook utilizing everything at his disposal to be able to stay alive. Cell Division coming in clutch, and a good answer there from players like Selfie to use the shockwave and punish the overcommitment from Roccat.
Selfie having a much stronger performance this week than last. Only got 2 kills, I believe, last week. Actually, no, didn't get a kill last week, so infinitely better than his last week's performance with 2 kills thus far. It's having so much fun, this game, Vedius.
It certainly is. Just looking across some of the CS advantages as well. Smitty J still struggling, but you looked at the gold earlier on, and again, the Kleptomancy doing him a lot of favors, keeping things not as far apart as they may seem in the score.
He's ahead.
So Kleptomancy, by the way, pretty advantageous summoner spell to go if you know you're in a losing matchup.
There's 1,300 gold between the AD carries here as well. Sheriff, who is someone we bigged up before the split as a very promising rookie coming in, now maybe is in a position where he can put the team on his back to a degree. He hasn't had the best of performances. Only that Vayne game against Fnatic he really showed up. But this is the opportune moment for him to solidify himself as an LCS caliber player.
Well, he's doing a good job of it so far. 15 minutes now into the game. And H2k hold a healthy gold lead. I can hear Riot Quickshot definitely getting pretty excited. Again, only person predicting H2k to win.
Please stop saying that. He's going to brag so much in the office if he's right.
Even I said Roccat should be the favorites in this game.
But you were bad at predictions last week. I was joint first with amazing.
What can we say? Maybe Quickshot is the one true prophet.
Maybe it's the fever just making him make good decisions.
There's plenty of time left in this game. We'll see how things progress. Now, Promise Q sitting in the bush, waiting for a potential pick.
H2k being a bit more proactive here.
Feels
Getting
like
vision control, looking for some deep pushes in. Roccat going to trade in this bottom lane as Prophet once again. Get some damage onto Smitty J, as expected in that lane matchup at the moment.
Full control over the top side of Rockat's jungle from H2k. Really utilizing the strength of the Xayah Rakan, along with the pushing power of Selfie on the Orianna, who seems to be playing a lot more confidently after the blunder that he made earlier on.
And Sheriff now has an Essence Reaver completed. Selfie's got the Morello Nomicon complete as well. And yet to see a complete item on Hiku. Only the Zeal and the Pickaxe. So
definitely rough for him.
The continued pressure, the continued front step play here from H2k. Much more reminiscent of H2k of old when they were making playoffs, when they were challenging for those top spots?
I don't know if I'd go that far just yet.
It's not the same, but it's better, Vedius. Let's give them something.
Sure, I definitely admit that this is better from H2k, but it's not like we haven't seen H2k go even for a lot of the game until Baron spawns. And that will be the true test. Because remember, I said that Roccat, I feel, are one of, if not the best mid-game team in the league. And the reason for that is, in League of Legends, every time you push out a wave, you create what is effectively an opportunity, or otherwise known as a window. And during that window is effectively your turn to make a play. And I feel that Roccat are the best team when it comes to utilizing those windows. They are so proactive with their vision. They always have a clear game plan with each step that they take. And they're often very clean and crisp in how they do it. And I think this will be, as we approach the 20-minute mark, a good opportunity, a good test for H2k to see how they mitigate that. Can they stop Roccat from making those proactive or taking advantage of their typical proactive plays during these windows?
I think the other side of that as well is, are Roccat in a position where they can make proactive plays? Being behind in gold, about 1,000 behind, having Sheriff already items ahead of HQ, having Selfie with 2 kills to only 1 sitting on blank. Are Roccat in a position they can actually utilize mid-game windows?
I mean, remember that they still have a strong side lane in Camille, and Roccat are very aware of where H2k are trying to play, which is towards the top side of the map. And given that kind of information, Roccat, all they need to do is stall to allow Profit to continue making plays, because the one thing that Roccat can guarantee is a number advantage over their opposition, and they can try and force a fight.
Prison on towards Sheriff, who flashes away, but here's the Realm Wolf as well. The Feather Storm comes down, looking for the Blade Caller, ace in the hole, the root on Sheriff. Promise Q protects him, the Shockwave onto Profit, that's a lot of damage coming out. The Hexa Ultimatum and Norskaven secures the kill on Sheriff. Roccat make the pick they wanted.
Do you remember that numbers advantage I was just talking about, Medic? This is what I mean. Profit pushes out bot, he can then group up with his team, and Roccat can force a fight. Because even if you're behind, 5 versus 4 is almost always guaranteed to win. Love the proactiveness from Roccat. Gold still in H2k's favor, but it will definitely alleviate some of the pressure that H2k have been exerting.
Definitely does, especially since H2k have still only taken 1 tower with this lead. They will definitely be looking for more. The CS difference between HQ and Sheriff is shrinking. Top lane still remains about the same, but Smitty J has finished Triforce now, so is starting to get towards more items on this Gangplank. Will be able to have much more of an impact in team fights if he's there.
Certainly can be, but he's going to be pretty reliant on getting a couple of those items as well. So look at the minimap. You can see Camille running up through the river, and that is when Roccat decide to initiate, because Gangplank is catching the wave. Pings even went down onto him to indicate that he won't be able to join the fight. Only his ultimate will be involved, and that's not going to be enough to swing a 5 versus 4 in the favor of H2k. Those are the kind of proactive plays you need to be making when you're behind. And it was good of Roccat to recognize that.
That's exactly what you said, Vedius. Mid-game opportunities, mid-game windows, and they're looking to do it once again. Realm Warp available here for Blanc. He's going to jump in onto Sheriff. Promise Q there as well, but these two members of H2k are just stuck in the middle of the team. Roccat will be able to pick up Sheriff eventually. HQ looking to secure it. Sheriff can't make a 1v3 outplay. Promise Q's going to actually still be caught off towards the top side of this. Can get towards the blast cone. Will try and use it to jump away, but Momento's going to follow him. Promise Q still has the grand entrance, but there is the Glacial Prism, and there is the mace to the face of Promise Q.
Bit of a slip up there from H2k. They thought that, hey, we're still pretty strong right now. Hey, we can keep pushing up top lane. But they didn't have the support from Shook. They didn't have the vision control. And they have no side lane pressure. You can't afford to overextend that much when you do not have the other pieces in play on the board. And Roccat immediately looked to capitalize, utilizing their mid-game strength once again, and now ascertaining the gold lead once more.
After they take this tower, they will be in the gold lead. H2k though, at the 20-minute mark, were ahead. It's only the second time they've been ahead this split at 20 minutes. Usually about 2,000 gold behind, so it's not the end of the world for them, but they don't want to do this again.
H2k at this point are just like, oh no! Ah! They got caught in the birdcage. Roccat very quickly with multiple members crushed the birdcage, and the birds unfortunately were not able to make it out with their lives.
That was overly graphic.
A little vivid, I admit, but there we are. H2k end up losing their bottom lane to Roccat. now getting themselves the kill advantage. They took themselves out the top tower as well. And now things like the Baron start to come into play.
Could have gone with something like caught in the tundra because they forgot to migrate.
Oh, good one. That's a good one.
If only I'd thought of that while I was actually casting it. It's very easy after the fact, and I'm sure H2k will be ruining the fact that they got caught out there because they did have deep pressure. They did have some vision into the Roccat jungle, which they've now lost.
Now, if they can just get Gangplank onto one more item, they can look to force fights.
Flash in straight onto a trap, though. Here comes the double shockwave, the knockup. What a play from H2k!
And before I get the opportunity to talk about it, there it is. The team fight power, the wombo combo that H2k have with their comp is very strong. They were not out of this game just yet, and all they needed to do was be willing to make the play, and this is where Shook comes in. This is the guy that helps facilitate this kind of proactiveness, and they answer back to Roccat and secure themselves under the turret.
Second tower of the game, and the gold lead once again. And an Infernal Drake coming up in only 25 seconds time. H2k will try and get some vision around this. They played around a window of opportunity that they found. And a lot of that is off the back of Shook. Selfie having a very strong performance on this Orianna as well with that double ball delivery system.
Yeah, he's been steadily picking up those kills. Very, very strong at this point in the game. And Roccat, they're just clearing out the minion waves. Don't expect this engage, but just look at it. Shook brings them together. The charm keeps them in place. Selfie gets the damage. Sheriff has the follow-up route. Such a clean initiation. Well done.
Oh, Roccat trying to answer here. You talked about mid-game windows. They saw an opportunity because the Infernal Drake was started by H2k, and Roccat are going for the Baron. 5,000 HP left on it. H2k not near it. Shook looking for the leap in. Can he still? He's knocked back. He's knocked up. The Bishop from Norskaven is beautiful. The Realm Warp out, and Roccat get out scot-free.
It's constantly back and forth with these two teams. H2k are the ones to blink the first play, Roccat answer. H2k then find an answer of their own, and when they're feeling confident, they go for the Dragon. They think it's the smart play. Bang, Roccat show up once again, securing themselves the Baron. But the gold still even, man.
Don't think many people would have expected that coming into this game. Let's have another look at this because Norskaven is your man to watch here.
This is why we praised him for his broad play. The combo,
good.
the knockup to interrupt the jump over the wall, the Sejuani ults follow up. This is why it's a comfort pick for him, and this is why you always have to keep your eyes on him, even when you think it's not the best pick in the current setup.
So now Roccat have a Baron. They've got Blank up in a side lane. They've got Camille down in a side lane as well.
Yeah.
They are looking to collapse a little bit here, but there's good vision control from H2k, so they should be safe for the moment.
Definitely going to be looking to set up the 1-3-1. In fact, it's quite interesting that Prophet has grouped up with the rest of his team. Perhaps he just wants to make sure that they're a 5-man as Roccat look to get a bit of deep vision down. But instead, they're gonna back away. There's a red buff to be picked up for Hikyu. Sejuani wants to make sure that there's a little bit more deep vision towards the top side so that when Blanc looks to push, he knows who is in the enemy jungle.
Doesn't have that get out of jail free card anymore.
Also
have to
very
be
true.
aware of that.
Yep. Now we see the sweeps coming out from H2k, so Blanc should have to back up. Love to see the Camille start pushing in a little more aggressively now, knowing that he should still be stronger in the 1-versus-1. Prophet's still one of the big, key, reliable playmakers, and now, again, utilizing that window, moving over to the mid, they're going to look to take this mid-tier 1.
Prophet's just acting as a zoning tool more than anything else here. 1 minion left, and we'll be able to take down the tower. Roccat with a third of the game, 1,000 gold lead for them, but very much back and forth. H2k risk averse at the moment. They want to step back. They don't want to give up anything in their own jungle, so they're just trying to protect towers as that tier 2 line rather than stepping any further up.
But again, H2k, they're not completely out of this yet. They just need to stall, hold off the Baron, make sure that not too much damage is done to their base. Look to see if they can force a fight somewhere. SmittyJ still scaling up, has the Sterix now completed. And that'll definitely help him a little bit more in the 1-versus-1. He just wants to get to a point where his barrels can instantly wave clear the wave. And then he's not as afraid of Camille as he typically would be up until that point. Now they have caught Memento.
Red buff there. It's going to get smited away by Memento. There's the Glacial Prison stun onto Shook as well, and maybe he's overextended the route down towards the top side as well. Promiscu goes golden. He's trying to jump away. Shook looking for the re-engage. Promiscu there. Double charm. Selfie. Shockwave on one. Already one's down. Prophet's trying to find as well. Promiscu charms him up. Hexagon made him use. Shook in the midst. Soul Division. He's down, but he'll be back. And now Blank and Prophet are trying to get away. They'll realm warp. And they get to safety. 1-for-1 thus far. H2k can't chase any further.
And you can see that the team fighting from H2k is still pretty potent. Shook positioning fantastically in these fights to just buy a lot more time to allow his carries to reposition and dish out the damage. Hiku is not having the impact that he would typically like in a lot of these team fights, and he ended up dropping. Just some good play there from the side of H2k. Very back and forth game so far. And I think we can both confidently say there's definitely a step-up improvement from H2K's of previous weeks. So Roccat feels that they can force a fight right now. Again, look in the middle lane. You can see the Camille moving up for a potential flank. But Memento takes a lot more damage than they would like to initially. And then a big misplay there from Hiku, stepping up to try and follow on the engagement from Norskeren. Very quickly gets punished by the support from H2K. Yes, it cost him his life, but an AD trade for support, always going to be worth it for H2K, and they've successfully stalled out the Baron.
SmithyJ did teleport into the fight because he was dealing with a pushing wave in that bottom lane, so he won't have his TP. Profits is coming off cooldown relatively soon. Hiku has not had the best of performances, as we mentioned on that Caitlyn. 3 deaths in this game. Up until today, he's only died once on Caitlyn in the 3 games that he has played it previously. So really not being as safe on that backline. Maybe something like a Taric pick would have helped over this Braum pick for a little bit more security in a team fight.
Regardless, he's definitely going to be important in the fights to come. Roccat don't need to necessarily force them though. They're utilizing the fact that they feel like they're stronger. But when you fight in the jungle like that, and the best thing you can do is focus the front line, it just felt like H2K had a lot more damage at this point in the game that were able to faster get through Memento than Roccat were able to get through Shook. And I feel like trying to force that play wasn't necessary when they had Profit drawing so much pressure up on the rest of the map.
It's of course important to remember the match of the week is up next. Vitality 7-1.
Game 4 after.
Oh, game 4, sorry, yes. Game 4. Couple of matches time. Vitality 7-1, trying to take down the champs in G2. There's the let's bounce back as they pull Memento in, but Roccat have the flank here. Profit there. Selfie looking for a shockwave. Will get it only on towards Profit. Chef trying to survive. He'll go down. Blank kills Promise Q down towards the bottom side as well. And now Shook's in the midst. It's Selfie, but he's caught out. Here comes SmithyJ. What can he do? The top laner finally joins the fray, but H2K are running away from this one because they don't want to continue this fight. They lose 3 members and Profit comes up huge.
Roccat utilizing the TP advantage that they had. You recognized it earlier on, Medic. SmithyJ used the CP to get into that last team fight, which meant that Roccat could very quickly generate a numbers advantage before SmithyJ could get involved, and now Roccat securing a big team fight win, get themselves another tower, and they're looking for more. 4,000
gold lead for them now as they look for this mid lane tower. If they can secure this, you have to think it may be the beginning of the end for H2K, who are still trying to hold on for these 3rd items on their main carriers. Gangplank only sitting on the Zeal. Sheriff died so many times recently. We said it was his opportunity to step up, but he just continually gets caught out in fights.
It is pretty difficult for him too when he's playing up against the Camille, who's very eager to lock him down. So here's the TP, the collapse from Rise as well into the river, and the swift rotation from Hiku and Norskeren. Their eyes are on Sheriff, and they lock him down effectively. He's too far away from Promise Q, who can't really offer much in the way of support. So much single target damage. Selfie is doing his best in these fights, but he can't get onto the targets that he wants. He doesn't have a front line that he can really rely on when the fight is as chaotic as that. And it enables Roccat to get a pretty effective team fight off.
And they're looking for that 5-4 scoreline as well. They want to join Splice. They want to join Giants at a positive win rate halfway through the split. Very strong mid-game from them. We talked about their ability to see an opportunity, to jump on it. That's exactly what they've done against H2K here, and they come out of that 10-minute stretch with a 5,000 gold lead after being slightly behind H2K at the 20-minute mark.
Now H2K are looking for that one big fight. We've already seen the Wombo combo in action before. The double kill that they got onto Hiku and Norskeren was great. Roccat though want to be first on the trigger.
Yeah, Roccat want to fight as well. Cannon Barrage going to zone out Profit here. H2K will just go back into their own jungle. Profit does take a chunk. There's the ace in the hole as well. Selfie will be able to tank that one up. Here comes Shook jumping in from the back line. He's only going to bring Norskeren back. Don't want to use too much on the support, but they will take him down. H2K now pushing forward towards Roccat.
This is very risky from Roccat, constantly trying to force these fights when H2K do have the better 5v5. especially when you miss so many crucial abilities. The longer you stay in these fights, the more opportunities you give H2k to look for a return play. Love the engages coming out from Shook, nice confidence from him, and now it is H2k that are looking to bait the Baron.
They have just been spotted at the edge of that. They're going to start it up as well, but Roccat, we've seen Memento steal before. Promise Q in from the side, the Shockwave, they kill Blank! And now H2k can look for the Baron. Still 3 members left alive from Roccat. Memento could steal.
Remember how many he's stolen before. Shook, can he secure this for his team?
That's what you need a veteran jungler to do, but Prophet doesn't even want the Baron to go low. He jumps in onto Smitty J. Prophet's down. Memento trying to kill Shook before he can get the Baron, but he just can't do enough. Cell Division passive is used, and H2k, will they turn back towards the Baron? Because Norskeren is on his way. Looks like H2k are willing to back away for the moment.
H2k secure themselves a lot of kills and unfortunately are not able to get themselves the Baron. But TP available on the Gangplank. Looks like H2k don't want to overcommit. They recognize a lot of ultimates are unavailable and overstaying could really hurt them.
How much better is this from H2k though? They fell 5,000 gold behind, now it's only 3,000. Sheriff, it's going to stop his port. Shook is there as well. Q on the chase. He's trying to make a big play on this Caitlyn. Norskeren there as well. Here's Memento. Cannon Barrage down. The TP coming in from Smitty J as H2k try and keep their AD alive. Memento now realizes he's not in the best of shapes. Smitty J joins the fight. Memento flashes away. Will they save their AD carry? Will they get out alive? Smitty J has to flash. Promise Q looking for the quickness but won't go for the engage.
Now Prophet doesn't have his TP up, but it will be ready soon. Memento going to regen from the Warmogs. And now they have their eyes set on the Baron. Smitty J can't TP into the fight. Sheriff is going to be forced to go back, and Roccat, they're going to be kicking this off.
It's up to H2k. It's up to Shook, the veteran jungler, trying to make a play for the team. It's down to 5,000 HP as Roccat continue on the Baron. They pulled off the quickness onto Prophet, trying to catch him out. There's the shotgun, double knockup. Prophet somehow still alive with the lock of the irons alive, but the next bounce brings them all back into the team. Selfie, cleanse, they're going to get on towards Roccat now. Double kill for Shook. And H2k clean up the fight.
Another huge wombo combo coming in for H2k, and it feels like Roccat just keep getting bored into these fights. They need to be playing the map, but their eyes are so focused on the Baron. H2k are getting everything that they want.
Memento can feel the steel here. He knows that he can do it. He's done it before. Shook on the Baron. Blanc kills Promise Q. Shook still there. He's so low. Doesn't have the division, but he does have the smite. And now they'll turn on to Roccat. Q trying to do what he can. Sheriff's going on towards Blanc here as well. Double kill for Sheriff, and H2k get out alive.
H2k succeed with the Baron and are able to walk away with it with their whole team intact. Who would have thought that bringing in Shook would be exactly what they needed? Selfie level 18 on this Orianna, 5, 0, and 7. So many members are now stepping up for H2k, and they could be on track to getting their second win of the split.
These Baron fights just kept on going.
Now that Shockwave, not the best one for H2k, but it doesn't matter because Shook redeems it. Getting a 3-man ultimate onto so many crucial members allows the AoE from the Xayah and the Ori to just rip through this H2k lineup. Fantastic performance from them. Bit of an overstep from Promise Q, but he does force Memento back. Shook gets insanely low, but is still able to secure the Baron. They then walk away with a couple extra kills, and now they're in a position to start sieging onto Roccat. Think of the diving power of this comp. H2k in a very good position right now.
Just want to group up as 5. H2k don't care about side lanes. They don't care about how big Prophet is. They want team fights. They want to force this bottom lane tower. Promise Q's going to engage all the way on the back line. Double shockwave as well. Blank's pulled back. Norskeren in there as well. Blank is still alive though. Pops the realm warp. Can he get away? No, he cannot. As H2k take down 2, and Trevor, quick shot Henry might be right here, Vedius, because H2k are looking to close out the game.
H2k looking so convincing with a single roster change. Shook comes in, he makes all the difference, and H2k are just 1 tower away from securing the win over Roccat.
Shook's going to sacrifice himself, but it's just 1 Nexus tower between H2k and their second victory of the split. Roccat would be the ones to fall, and H2k would be the ones to take the win. Prophet trying to do what he can, but he just can't do enough. H2k took them till week 5, but finally they come alive, they clean up the ace, and they take down the Nexus.
Shook was all they needed.
Shook was all it took, man. He got to shake things up.
The initiation, the proactiveness, the difference this guy made to the team. is fantastic for H2k roster. Yes, you do have to criticize Roccat for not playing towards their win conditions. Typically, you would expect them to be a lot more respectful of the team fighting power of H2k, but instead, fight after fight, initiation after initiation, Roccat just kept trying to force. And H2k demonstrated we will not back down, we will not give up. We can still win out on these fights. They were able to do it, and with a single Baron, it is they that close out the game quickly rather than having the game closed out on them.
And what a change-up for them as well. H2k gone from a team that we thought might have been the worst in EU LCS history to a team that looks to be challenging maybe for that 6th playoff spot if they continue to improve.
They need to keep this upward trajectory. 1-7, well now 2-7 at the end of the first half is definitely going to be a bit of an uphill struggle, but we've seen teams do it in the past. And perhaps they could look to join those teams. But what a great performance from H2k.
And a bad performance from Roccat, I think we have to say. Like, their mid-game, we still saw them utilizing windows of opportunity. We still saw them making some plays. But it felt like they got a bit overconfident and kept trying to force fights.
Definitely felt like that. They were not utilizing the 1-3-1 as well as they did versus Vitality last week. It's going to cost them here, and hopefully they can learn from it moving into next week. But congratulations to H2k securing themselves their second win of the split.
Yeah, be sure to hit us up with your player of the game, which comes from H2k, something we haven't commonly said. Smitty J, Shook, and Selfie are your candidates. Head over to @LolEsports on Twitter, where you can decide who comes out on top. And I think
it's got to be Shook, man. I mean, you could definitely
Selfie
credit
had
Selfie
such
as
a
well.
performance.
He definitely did, but I just feel like that Shook comes in on a really struggling team, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He just shakes it off. He plays like he does, and he has a great performance. So very enjoyable to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing what H2k can bring out over the next few weeks. Will they stick to this team fight style? Will they look to try and change things up? Regardless, I feel like we're starting to see a bit more of an identity from this roster than we have so far.
And in terms of like draft and the way they play, you have to remember Veteran isn't averse to switching things up if needs be. But looking at it now, Vedius, looking at who made the plays for H2k, I think I have to agree with you that Shook is probably my pog as well.
I mean, it was very enjoyable to watch. We got a lot of fights. Typically, you don't want to watch H2k in the past because they really don't do anything, but now they just seem so much more proactive. They're not afraid to really get scrappy, go for those fights. Even when at deficits, they were willing to try and make plays, and that is great to watch. Love seeing that adaptation, especially when you are so far down during the regular season. You need to be willing to take these chances. You know, you have to be willing, if you want to fight for a playoff spot, take those kind of gambles. And today, I feel like we saw a first sign of that, and we saw a very promised-looking H2k.
You have to remember the experience that Shook does have. He's been to Worlds in the past. You know, he has performed at the biggest stage in the world. Got kaboomed there, but we don't talk about that, Vedius. Let's hear more on H2k's win. Let's head it over to Dracos, who is with Shook.
Thank you very much, guys. Great cast in the day. I am joined by Shook. Look, man, I haven't seen you in forever. You come in, you immediately start destroying people. How does it feel to be right back on the LCS stage, finding wins immediately?
I just feel like at stage it doesn't really matter for me. Like nervousness doesn't really affect me. So even if I don't play competitive for a long time, like I'll still be able to perform and then just go in, make engages, make my team win the game. And yeah, I'm just glad to be back.
So how much practice time did you actually have with this roster leading into this week? I know it was kind of sudden for a lot of people on the outside to see you to come in the jungle position.
I've played 3 days of scrim with this team, and actually scrims have been going really great, I think. Like we're improved on the fast pace. I think I have really smart players in my team, so they understand the game well, and like I feel like I'm very experienced in the jungle right now. I really know how to make stuff work in the jungle, and I think we can go far. If we just keep on improving, I have high chances for this team.
So what role do you kind of fit when it comes to team communication? Obviously, we can see what you're doing in-game, but how do you work kind of outside of the game with this team?
Outside of the game, I just like to give input on what we should play for, what the best comps are, like how we should probably play. And in-game, I'm just very decisive with my engages, and my team trusts in me already, so that's always nice, and it's going great so far.
All right, so we have just ended the first half of the split for H2k, now 2-7. What does the second half of the split look like now that you're on the team?
I hope we're gonna go far, because I have faith in this team. Like I think we don't have any bad player or anything. Like I think they're all good, and we're just gonna make it happen, and we'll see from now.
Damn good to hear, man. Well, congrats again on the win. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. For now, we're gonna send it to a quick break. When we get back, Misfits and Unicorns of Love going head to head.
On his way, the flash away, but Hiku's brought back. Let's bounce, jumps in. Hiku there, Shook in the front line, the ball. There's a kill for H2k. They're looking for a little bit more with the shockwave from the side. No scam and push a Fisher down, but it's a double kill for H2k. He's in the hole, the root on Sheriff. Promise Q protects him. The shockwave onto Profit. That's a lot of damage coming out. The Hexagon ultimatum and Norskaven secures the kill on Sheriff.
They can look to force fights.
Flash in straight onto a trap, though. Here comes the double shockwave, the knockup. What a play from H2k! There's the Glacial Piston stun onto Shook as well, and maybe he's overextended the route down towards the top side as well. Promiscu goes golden, he's trying to jump away. Shook looking for the re-engage. Promiscu there, double charm, selfie. Shockwave on one, already one's down. Profit's trying to find as well. Promiscu charms him up. Hexagon made him use. Shook pulled off the quickness onto Profit, trying to catch him out. There's the shockwave, double knockup. Profit somehow still alive with the locket of the Irons alive, but the next bounce brings them all back into the team. Selfie, cleanse, they're gonna get on towards Roccat now. Double kill for Shook. Just can't do enough. H2k took them till week 5, but finally they come alive. They clean up the ace and they take down the Nexus.